Once again, good evening to everybody. Chairman Patillo, the meeting is yours. We're live streaming.
Thank you, sir. Good evening to everyone, and welcome to the Thursday, March 4th, 2021 public work session of the Portsmouth City School Board. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and I ask that we all now pause briefly for a moment of silence. Thank you. Agenda item 2.3 and 2.4 will be led by myself, the Pledge of Allegiance and the mission statement. I ask we now acknowledge the Pledge of Allegiance at this time. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The mission of the Portsmouth Public School Division is to engage all students in learning that will foster academic excellence and responsible citizenship. Agenda item 2.5 will be attendance. On this evening, Ms. Chambers, she is out sick, so we'll send our thoughts and prayers with her that she will recover quickly. But we're in the capable hands of Ms. Brenda Stewart, and she will lead us in the attendance roll call at this time.
Ms. Atkinson?
Here.
Mrs. Hines?
Here.
Mr. Parent?
Here.
Mrs. Shoemake?
Present.
Mrs. Thomas?
Here.
Mr. Tillage?
Here.
Dr. Whitaker?
Here.
Mrs. Williams?
Here.
Reverend Patillo?
Present.
All members are present.
Thank you so much. Agenda item 2.6, the approval of the agenda for March 4th, 2021. I'll now entertain a motion at this time.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Parent, second by Ms. Williams. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Ms. Atkinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hines?
No.
Mr. Parent?
Yes.
Mrs. Shoemake?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Tillage?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Reverend Patillo?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no. The motion carries.
Thank you so much. Agenda item 3.1, discussion for the agenda review for March 18th, 2021. This meeting will be held at Woodrow Wilson High School.
Move for approval.
It's not a vote, Mr. Parent. Any discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ms. Hines.
Notice.
Thank you. I just have a quick question for Mr. Falk. Are we expecting a contract for the rezoning bit that we've been talking about?
Make sure I mute. Good evening, school board members. Good evening. No, ma'am. We had to extend that due to questions that came through. That has been extended to March 15 based on the questions that came back from vendors within our first proposal and some of the back and forth. So it's been extended for the proposals to come back to March 15th. We'll give you an update at the next board meeting on whether, it closed out and proposals came in. We got a lot of interest from a number of vendors, and we want to make sure they can give us a complete proposal with the questions that came in.
Okay, because the last time we talked, it was closing about the end of January. So I was hopeful, but thank you for making sure that it is what exactly that it is that we need. I just know that I'm ready to get this off our plate and go to the next step. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas.
Hi, Chair. Thank you, Chairman Patillo. Was your question about or was your comment before concerning the next meeting being at Woodrow Wilson High School in person?
No, I was just letting the board know that it was set to be at Woodrow Wilson on the 18th, but you can discuss anything on the agenda that you
Okay, no, that's absolutely fine. I just wanted to make sure. I know today's meeting was also supposed to be at Woodrow Wilson High School. And due to some of us getting our shots, and also if someone couldn't actually be in person, it was brought to my attention that we did not have the capability at Woodrow Wilson High School to have a physical meeting and a virtual call-in option. So is there a way to make that happen just in case like anything goes wrong and that a board member wants to call in, for example, if they're sick or anything like that? I think going forward, it's important for us to be able to ensure we meet in person, but also have a backup in case a board member is not able to be in attendance, especially as we're moving forward in a virtual and in a physical meeting, which I'm looking forward to. I was looking forward to it today, but I think that's something we need to consider.
Yes, we shouldn't have any issue with the next meeting. The issue again for this evening, half the board and half the administration all received the vaccine on yesterday. And we had a couple board members who couldn't be in attendance in person, but we are set and scheduled for March 18th at Wilson High School.
So will we have, just in case as a backup, if anyone, not just a board member, as a backup, if anyone can't attend, will they be able to, I guess, somehow call in, or would they just have to miss that meeting? I just want to make sure we have some type of backup there.
Are you speaking as far as the public being able to view the meeting, or?
No, anyone that's normally in the meeting.
Yeah, I believe the issue this time was that someone wanted to cast a virtual vote while we were having a meeting in person. So next meeting, it'll be required for everyone to be in person at the next meeting. But Dean, if you can, I guess, look into that to see if it's a possibility, we can always check out other options.
Yeah, we'll certainly take a look at that. I can't say for sure that we'd have a solution in place by March 18th, though. We can take a look at it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hines?
Thank you, Chair. Just to piggyback with Ms. Thomas, if we needed to move it to say like Norcom room 217, which is like the tech room that we have always used, I don't know if that would be a solution. I'm not trying to, but I think maybe if we look at an alternate place for the meeting, if that's what it had to be, then maybe that's what we need to do.
I'm sure they could look at it, but I believe Wilson was chosen because of the spacing that's required for us to meet and for the number of staff that may be required to come. But Dr. Bracy, you want to hit on that?
Yes, sir. Well, first of all, I see Norcom room 217 is being renovated at this time. So that room is not available. And we looked at Woodrow Wilson because it came up at the last meeting regarding the spacing and the social distancing, and that was the better location for us to hold a meeting. It'll look, the layout will look similar to what we did when we had the renaming hearings occurring at the same time. So we can take a look at other spaces to see if that's a possibility, but we're hoping soon that we'll be back into, I guess, the city hall building once everything opens up. That's our normal meeting space. So I'll have to check in with the city manager to see what their time frame looks like on that, and then to see if what Mrs. Thomas is asking for, how we can make that happen.
Okay, thank you.
Any other board member comments on this discussion item? All right, agenda item 3.2 is a discussion item for the fiscal year 2021-22 budget update. Mr. Falk, I believe.
Sir, good evening again, Chair Reverend Patillo, Vice Chair Atkinson, members of the school board, Dr. Bracy. We wanted to give the school board an update and the public a brief update on the FY 21-22 budget, since the General Assembly passed the state budget last week. That will now be sent to Governor Northern for his review and approval. The VDOE hasn't provided us with a lot of number detail, so we don't have a lot of the revenue estimates now, since that just was done this past weekend. However, we do know some of the initiatives that are out in this budget. Some have been in the media and some have not. The most notable change that most people have heard is that the General Assembly budget included a 5% salary increase for all SOQ funded positions. And just to make a note of that, that 5% can be given over the 2 years in the biennium 2021 and FY 21-22. If you recall, in FY 2021, this current year, PPS gave all employees a 2% raise. So based on the preliminary information we have, it would look like that we would need to provide at least a 3% raise in order to comply with the General Assembly's requirements. And as we stated in previous presentations, since that state funding only covers SOQ positions, we would need additional revenue to cover any of our other employees that would be eligible for the raise, which would be everybody. And just for comparison's sake, because I've seen a lot of articles today and over the course of the last couple of weeks about other school divisions. So we just wanted to make a comparison in regards to what you see. A lot of school divisions are saying they're giving a 5% raise. So for the public and for the school board, let us explain that. Many school divisions in this Southampton Roads area, I know, and some across the state, did not give a raise as of July 1st. We did here in Portsmouth. So in order to receive the money from the state, they would have to give a 5% raise in FY 21-22 in order to be eligible for the funding. Since we gave a 2% this year, we would only have to give a 3% to get up to that 5% threshold. So I just wanted to make that clear to the public because it looks a little different when you see 5 and 3, so on and so forth. The other initiatives of note that we could find that we were notified of in this budget, they retained the no-loss funding. If you recall from the budget presentation, that is the funding that is holding school divisions harmless for the enrollment losses that we've had since the coronavirus hit and the pandemic hit. And then another interesting inclusion was funding for support positions, additional positions such as nurses, social workers, behavioral health specialists, and other areas in response to the effects of the pandemic on our students. So again, we don't have details on these dollars. This is not total and final yet because the governor has to look at it, review it, make his changes, and then send that back to the General Assembly for review and an ultimate vote if there's a veto session, so on and so forth. But I just wanted to give you an update on where we were. That will change our budget slightly. So what you will see when we present it on March 18th will be a little different because of some of these new initiatives than what you saw on February the 4th. And that really concludes what the update I have. If anybody had any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you for explaining that in detail, Mr. Falk. I was glad to hear that. Do any other board members have any questions for Mr. Falk at this time? All right, seeing no further discussion on that. Agenda item 3.3 is a roll call vote, consideration of contract for information technology contingent labor. Would that be Mr. Falk?
Yeah, I'll take that one. I may need Dean's help if there's specific questions, but this is a contract that we put out an RFP for to help us beef up our services of support to help parents as they call in with all the technology that we put forth. The IT department needed some extra people to help them. We did do some work with with the company over time, but we realized that the cost that we were going to have to spend over time is going to get greater. So we wanted to put a contract out there to get the best price available. And this is the result of that. We would award to 3 companies to provide us as needed support over the course of this 5-year contract.
Thank you, sir. And were all of these, and was the approved vendor MWB qualified vendor?
Yes, sir. The memo from our MWB coordinator is included. All 3 are MWB qualified by her estimation.
Thank you so much. Do we have, I'll entertain a motion at this time for this contract.
I move for approval.
Second, Atkinson.
Motion made by Mr. Parent, second by Ms. Atkinson. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Ms. Atkinson,
Yes.
Mrs. Hines,
Yes.
Mr. Parent,
Yes.
Mrs. Shoemake,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Tillage,
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Reverend Patillo.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Thank you so much. Agenda item 3.4 is a roll call vote consideration of the return to in-person learning. I'm going to allow Dr. Bracy to just give a brief overview of where we are as far as what we're going to be voting on tonight. Just as a reminder that we, as a board, voted to ask Dr. Bracy to bring us a hybrid option for in-person return learning. And he presented that to us on last week. And with that, we allowed the board an additional week to review that plan and process and send in questions. I'm thankful you all were very active in sending your questions and your concerns in reference to the plan. And I just want to thank the board as a whole for your, for your diligence and making sure that our staff and our students remain safe during this time period. I also want to thank Dr. Bracy and his staff for being flexible whenever the board asks to make adjustments and changes and put plans together. I have no doubt that his team and this board has the best interest of our students and our staff and all of our hearts. And I just want to thank you all for your efforts during this process. Dr. Bracy.
Thank you, Chair Patillo, Vice Chair Atkinson, and members of the board. As Reverend Patillo mentioned, over the past few weeks, we fielded dozens of inquiries from our parents, staff, and you, our board members, looking at the plan that we presented at our February 25th meeting, where we presented a plan for the hybrid model for in-person instruction. So we want to I want to share the feedback that we've gotten also from you to look at an alternate plan. Also, is one of the questions that came out from that discussion. So with that, what we talked about last week was a hybrid model of 2 days in person and 3 days asynchronous for grades pre-K through 8, with our SPED ELL students coming in 4 days a week, also K through 12. And earlier this week, we received questions from the board members that I sent to you all. You asked for consideration for full day options for pre-K through 6, up to pre-K through 6. So with that information, we forwarded you, the team pulled together a plan and sent that information to you with a sample schedule of what pre-K through 6 would look like for full day hybrid, very similar to the plan that we presented last week. But this will have full day for pre-K through 6, 2 days a week, 3 days asynchronous. Nothing changed with the special education students and ELL students. They will be coming 4 days a week, for full days also. And of course, the rest of our students would come into the buildings for SOL testing. So if, depending on which plan you look at, that's where we are with it. So if the plan that we sent to you earlier this week with the pre-K through 6 and the ELL and special education, those dates would not change. We're still looking at staff reporting in on March 29th. And what this would do, though, this would have pre-K through 6 coming in on April 12th. So it wouldn't be a stagger. We would have pre-K through 6 come in on April 12th and the staff to come in a week before. So the difference is with that buffer, you see that following week after the March 29th, that's spring break. So then on Monday, April 12th, pre-K through 6, SPED, ELL will return on April 12th. So in looking at all of the plans that we presented, in particular the last one that you asked us to look at, it definitely looks at reaching our most vulnerable learners and giving them the most in-person instructional time as possible, while we would continue to provide our secondary, now 7 through 12, a rigorous and engaging online learning. And as I mentioned, when it's time for SOL testing, they will be coming into the building for testing. So Chair Patillo, Vice Chair Atkinson, members of the board, that's an update on where we are.
Thank you so much, sir. At this time, we will entertain a motion, and following the motion in a second, we will then open up for discussion.
Chairman Patillo?
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Williams.
Yes. I move that we accept the plan presented by the superintendent for all staff to return March 29th and pre-K through 6 for hybrid, 2 days full. Instead of 12:30, they would stay for the extended day for in-person. And then, of course, the virtual would sign off at 12:30 and do independent assignments, as well as the ELL and SPED would come full-time, 4 days a week, full-time. And I believe after much discussion and much going back and forth, I move the approval of that plan.
Second, Atkinson.
Motion was made by Ms. Williams, second by Ms. Atkinson. I will now open the floor for any discussion. Ms. Hines, and then Dr. Whitaker.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to ask one question that I know is going to be on the mind of some of the parents and guardians that are watching. What is the option for parents to change their decision should this full day plan be adopted tonight, considering that we just did a survey based on a half a day? Have we thought about what considerations that we have in place for those parents who wish to change their decision?
Yes, good evening, Mrs. Hines. Yes, we have. We thought about that. If you all did alter what was originally presented last week, we didn't necessarily want to put out an additional survey after just recently surveying our parents. So what we're going to do is we're going to send some information out to the parents, and if there are any changes to the survey that they recently completed, then they can notify the schools of that change, because we realize that what we surveyed them on may be different than what you all approve. So based on that, we will allow them to reach out to the schools and alter any decision that they made on the survey. And also the parents that we haven't heard from, the schools will try to reach out to them as well to try to get an answer on which direction they want to go. But if we don't hear from them, we can't get in contact with them, hopefully that we can, then we're looking at that as continuing on a virtual model.
Okay, thank you so much. And I'm sure I'll have more questions, but I'll give everybody time to ask theirs as well.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes, I have several questions. The first one is, what were the results of the survey? How many students are we talking about returning? I haven't seen that.
The survey just closed probably about 45 minutes ago. I think the number, I'll ask Mrs. Nolasco to give me the details on that about how many we had, and if we have any data disaggregated to share at this time. Lauren, will you?
Sure. We had 2,714 survey results at 5 o'clock when we looked. Obviously, we would need to get in and dig into that data before we can give you how many people have put in for a virtual or how many put in for the return to hybrid, because one survey result could have up to 6 children in that survey result individually, and preferences for each child could be different. So that's what we'll be working with our technology team over the next couple of days to break that down and get that information over to schools.
Okay. My second question is, have the teachers, staff been surveyed about their desires or options?
No, we did not survey the staff this time.
Okay, because I've been getting quite a few emails from teachers and staff about their concerns, and it seems like it would have been only fair to see how they felt about returning. And, that wasn't done. I'm wondering why that wasn't done?
I think we had some initial discussion about the staff survey and the staff, but I think when we were asked to do this, what it boiled down to was just seeing if we were going to have our students return, because I guess if the students were going to return, then the staff was going to follow with them. That's why, because the first time we did this back in October, November, we did survey both at that time. But this time we only reached out to the parents to see what their preference was.
Okay, my third question is about the ventilation issue. I know I sent an email and I got a response, but for the sake of parents, teachers, staff who are viewing this meeting, can we please get a summary of what's being done in relationship to ventilation in the buildings? Because we have some old buildings that we're planning to send people back to.
Okay, we'll make sure that that information is on the website so that everyone can see that.
Okay, but I was wondering, could we get an update?
Oh, you want now just an
Yes,
update?
now.
Oh, sure. Yes,
so
yes,
people
yes.
will know what's going on.
Oh, no problem. Yes, Dr. Simmons, will you give that update, please, on where we are with the ventilation in our buildings?
Yes, Dr. Bracy, Chair Patillo and Vice Chair Atkinson, members of the board, we plan and already have processed a PO to upgrade our ventilation systems in terms of the filters that they use. And so we're going from a MERV 10 to a MERV 13 that kind of traps all of the particles. I know that there's some articles out there about different things that I've seen in the Virginia Pilot and different things. Right now, our team is recommending not to go that way. Keep in mind, schools are a little bit different. And so those devices that have to be plugged up into the wall and you just mentioned about some of our buildings being old, that would kind of decimate our electrical systems. We feel like going to the MERV 13 is better, is a better option. I think I sent a report that said it may take 6 to 8 weeks. It really won't take 6 to 8 weeks. The 8 weeks is the maximum because we already have the PO process. So that work will start hopefully next week. Mr. Robinson and his team will head up that meeting. And then we also have an additional plan for some ventilations that I sent out today to members of the leadership team in terms of, we're not quite ready to talk about that yet in terms of, but we do have some additional plans. And I can assure you that we're going to do everything we can to make sure that the buildings are safe, that clean air flows through in terms of, keep in mind that the best way, of course, again, CDC, is to make sure everyone has on a mask, that they continue the social distance, in addition to what we're doing to try to, as extra precautions, to try to make sure that all of our staff and students are protected.
Okay, thank you. But just to be clear, we received grant money from the federal government to retool the ventilation systems, but that's not going to be done in time for the reopening that we're discussing tonight, correct?
I really can't say that it won't be done in the time frame that you're given in terms of, because again, we've had some meetings even this week in terms of we work closely with Mr. Falk. We know that money has been allocated. It's just a matter of going through those procurement processes in terms of, as soon as we make a decision. It's hard to say. I don't want to say it won't be done, but we're working on it just as fast and as hard as we can.
But we know procurement, the process can take some time. And this is a national crisis, so you have schools around the country that are competing for these systems to be replaced. So if we're sending staff and teachers back by March 29th and students by April 12th, are you telling me that by those dates, we'll have enough time to replace the systems that we have?
I can be confident of the MERV 13 replacement, but I can't be confident in the second systems that we're looking at.
Okay. And then the last question I have for now is that I received a lot of feedback from teachers about their concern about being able to teach both virtually and in person, and kind of the stresses associated with that. And this is why I think it would have been important to also get feedback or a survey from the teachers before we made the decision. So those are my questions and my comments for right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Whitaker. Ms. Thomas, Ms. Hines, and then Mr. Parent.
Thank you, Chair Patillo. And Dr. Whitaker actually addressed some of my questions in her questionnaire. I was going to ask about the survey results, but I understand we don't have those yet. My other questions, I also sent the follow-up question about the ventilation. And so, Dr. Simmons, thank you for the update regarding the plan to upgrade to MERV 13. Also, my request requesting, could we look at including HEPA filters in each classroom to help with air turnover? That is extremely important and still critical to me. And I'm trying to take off my own operational risk hat here, but that's where some of my questions are coming from. In addition, I think the MERV 13 filters are great. They're top. They're a great improvement from the MERV 10, and also the fact that you have switched to a bi-monthly replacement instead of what you were doing before. So that is a good process change as well. All of this gets to, and even what we're talking about right now on this call, is the need to over communicate right now. And what I'm hearing in the feedback from parents, from teachers, is that as we go through this change, as we start to try to operate outside of what we've normally operated, we really have to work to over communicate and also building trust. And what I'm hearing from the teachers is that, you know, teachers feel like they get the short end of the stick a lot. And so if we can, I know that we've been doing the plans, but sometimes the best laid plans, if not communicated, just makes people feel like you're not doing enough. So I would like to request, if we can, as we consider school reopening and bringing the teachers back, if we could form a school reopening task force for each school building that will include a principal, a teacher, a parent, a school nurse, and a custodian. So for each of those buildings, they can certify, you know, have that communication from the building itself to the top to communicate their needs and to establish those trusts. And I would also like to recommend, as we move forward in the hopes of over communicating and just letting the public and the teachers know what we're planning to do as we reopen, either now or whenever, that they can go and, for example, I'm using indoor air quality checks, Dr. Simmons. I'm not picking on you, just knowing where I come from. Indoor air quality reports. If we have tested the indoor air quality at our schools, we should make those reports available for the public to be able to see, for the teachers to be able to see. Date it, put it on the website, they could be able to find it. So I want to stress here for everyone that I understand the hesitancy of teachers to go back. I understand the hesitancy of even some parents that might be a little hesitant about sending their children back, but it doesn't matter when we open. I just would like us to focus on building the trust bonds here and over communicating. And I think a good way to do that is to form a school reopening task force at each and every school, that it consists of those at least 5 stakeholders. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Hines and then Mr. Parent.
Thank you, Chairman. I do have a couple of questions. Number one, for the SPED students that are looking to go back full day, do they have a hybrid option? Just simply because some of them have some very intricate health needs that parents may not want to send their kids to school all 4 days. And so I've got a couple of questions about what is the concern and what's the consideration for those SPED students. And that can be addressed in a few minutes when I'm done with all of my instruction questions. I'm going to lump them all in together. Are we going to allow families, if we do choose to open, are we going to allow families to stay on the same schedule? Because I know when we talked about it previously, if you had 2 children that were in, that were going to school, we were going to try our best to keep families on the same day. Is that an option also? And this pre-K 6 schedule, can you explain to me how the SOL schedule is going to impact especially the K2 teachers? Because what I really don't want to have happen is I really don't want us to go back to school and get into school, and then all of a sudden it's a quote unquote all hands on deck for SOL testing. So what is the consideration for SOL testing, and what does that schedule look like for this SOL testing schedule? Because that is a big concern. Because at the last meeting, it sounded like we were going to go asynchronous from May until June because of testing. But I don't feel, and I don't see how that would impact everybody going asynchronous from May until June again. But if somebody can explain that and help alleviate some issues, that would be what we need to hear right now. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask Ms. Battle Hardy to address the SPED question that you raised, Mrs. Hines.
Thank you, Dr. Bracy. Mrs. Hines, yes, the parents will have the option to send their kids hybrid or the 4-day, 4 days out of the week.
Okay.
But that would be determined in an IEP team decision.
Okay.
Because it's individualized.
Gotcha. So if they need to adjust the IEP, then they need to contact their case manager.
Yes, ma'am.
At their building level. Students that are inclusion students, they will receive their services when they come in, if they choose to come in on either the Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday split.
Yes.
So inclusion students are encouraged to do the hybrid as well.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, and the second question, we still will have families have their students on the same schedule. Yes, we will. That hasn't changed. So anyone coming out of the same household will definitely be on the same schedule. That's something that we're working to make sure that we have that figured out. And the last question regarding testing, I think that question came up in one of the questions that you all asked, that you sent an email on. I don't know if that was the one that came today or probably the earlier question. And really a lot of that, Mrs. Hines, depends on the number of students that actually select whether they're going to come in person, or if they select virtual. There will be, because that will determine the number of teachers that will be needed for testing. So if we have a lot of teachers that are available, then we could use some of the teachers that are not testing to actually serve as proctors or work with those kids that are asynchronous that day, so that they will have some type of synchronous learning during that time. So really, it all depends on what the parents decide to do as far as what staffing will look like.
Okay, follow up real quick on that question. Are we can parents call the school and ask about the option to test or not to test? Would that be their best course of action there?
I think what we've asked, we're asking all of the parents to bring their kids in for testing. So that's what we've been pursuing, to try to get them in for testing. So if they don't plan to send them in, they need to let us know that, because otherwise the buses will be going to their homes to pick them up to bring them in for testing.
So let me clarify one more time. K2 teachers, are they going to be expected to be a part of this SOL process, or are we just talking teachers 3 through 6?
We were
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, because I truly don't want to send students back just to turn around and flip them again.
Right. Well, as I mentioned, all of that will depend on what the numbers look like. I can't say at this time. I don't want to say anything that may change, but what we want to do is the teachers that are in the tested grades, if all possible, they will be responsible for the testing.
Okay, thank you. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Parent.
My question, I think my question was answered way back when Mrs. Thomas was talking about my concern was how often the filters were changed, and I think I got the answer for that, because that's very that's critical for everybody in the building, and that was answered. My other thoughts this evening is that, and I want to commend Dr. Bracy and his staff, because they have been inundated by questions, lots of questions. I mean, I have printed out all of the questions and answers for the last 3 days that have come from you, board members, and staff, teachers, parents. I mean, they have spent hours and hours and hours answering our questions. So, I mean, Mrs. Williams has a motion on the floor and we are in discussion. But the bottom line is that it's time for us as a board to, I mean, I think we can kick this, as I said, we can kick this can down the road as long as you want to, because you're not going to be able to get every answer that you want until we open the door and start the process. Once we start the process and students and teachers come back, then we can make changes and be flexible with how we do this. But if we don't start, and my passion is the kindergartners will be in first grade and they've never been in school. And I think it's time for us to bring them back, bring the children back, give them an opportunity. The parents have the option of being in person, hybrid. The parents make the decision. But as a board, we've already said when the teachers are coming back. I agree with you, Dr. Whitaker. I mean, I think teachers have had the opportunity, because we've had a discussion at our HR meeting that we just had this week. I mean, there's been a lot of input into this, and I want to commend Dr. Bracy and his staff, because it's taken a lot of time for them to answer every question. Even this afternoon, we're getting questions before this meeting. So I think as a board, we got to move forward. We've got to say, all right, we're going to move with our plan with the superintendent's recommendation, or we're not. So that's the bottom line. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chair Patillo.
Vice Chair Atkinson and Mr. Tillage.
Thank you, Chair. I just feel, you know, what board member Parent said, you know, at some point as a board, we have to make the tough decision. I just want to highlight a point. We were one of the only few divisions that actually had our teachers teach virtually from home. All the other divisions, the teachers were required to teach from in school. So there were some things that we as a board and Dr. Bracy and his staff recommended and did above and beyond that no other division did. So, you know, like I said, maybe if classrooms were set up in Walmart, Kroger, at the mall or the airport, you know, people be more likely to return, and not being insensitive about that. But no one can completely say that they have been in their homes this whole time. But when it comes to education, it's an issue. When it comes to returning to school, no, we can't do that. We don't feel safe. Okay, so you feel safe going to Walmart, you feel safe going to Kroger, you feel safe going to 7-Eleven, you feel safe traveling. And I'm speaking for myself because I have children in Portsmouth Public Schools. But me as a parent, I can't make a decision to not return when I know my children have been going to birthday parties and out and about. But then when it comes to their learning and their education and their mental health and their mental well-being, I'm gonna say, no, let's not return to school. But entertainment-wise, we can go all of these places. So like I said, at some point, we have to get back in school. And in order to, you know what the highs and lows is going to be, we have to get to that point where we return to school. As board member Thomas said, maybe a task force would help. That way we can, you know, do the pros and cons, and we can have an update on the things that's not working and the things that are working. But until we reach that point of returning back to school, we'll never know. And we can't keep pushing this back. We have to make a tough decision as a board. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Atkinson. Mr. Tillage, and then Mr. Parent.
Thank you, Chair Patillo. So I want to echo a lot of what has already been said this evening. I think Dr. Bracy, you and your staff have done a great job at answering questions, especially over the last week or so. I know it's been a lot of questions trying to figure out a plan. I do have a question in regards to Wi-Fi and internet in the buildings. I know that, especially with teachers teaching virtually as well as teaching in person, that's going to demand a lot on the Wi-Fi in the buildings. And so I just want to confirm that our schools are or will be capable of handling all of that come March 29th as teachers re-enter the buildings, just to give a peace of mind to our teachers that technology is up to date.
Yes, Mr. Tillage. I'm gonna let Mr. Slaffer answer that, but I could answer it because I asked him that very same question about a week ago, verbatim. So, but I'll let him go ahead and address it.
Thank you, Dr. Bracy, and thank you, Mr. Tillage. Our networks have been upgraded really not that long ago. We've got access points in every single classroom. The short answer to your question is our networks are ready to receive the students and the teachers to be able to work from our buildings. So we're ready to receive them. We're looking to the future as well. We're also planning for the next generation of Wi-Fi. So we're trying to stay ahead of this. And we're always thinking, forward thinking. But the short answer to your question is yes, we're definitely ready. Our networks have been asleep for a little while, so when our teachers do come into the buildings, we may have a classroom or two that the connectivity we may have an issue, but we're going to have boots on the ground and folks that are going to assist and make sure that we get things fixed as soon as possible. So we're going to be ready for our teachers and our students for sure, just like always.
That's great to know. Thank you so much for that information. And then also, I just want to speak, being a new school board member, I do believe that this vote on this evening is by far, to this moment, the most difficult vote that I've taken this far, and will probably be one of the most difficult votes during my time on school board. And I think that every school board member here on this in this meeting has the best interest of teachers and students and staff, as well as the administration of PPS. So I do believe that the time has come for us to make this decision. We've been going back and forth now for a while, and I know that the previous board back in November had, talked about reopening, and at that time the positivity rate was only 6%, and it was still pushed down and postponed. And so now we're at a point now where today the positivity rate is 11.2%, and now it's time for us to make this hard decision. And I do think that as we enter back into school, that maybe we can, if things need to be adjusted, we can have those serious discussions to see how we can best serve our teacher, staff, and students as we continue into this. And we are entering into an uncharted territory all across the nation. And so this is not something that's just here in Portsmouth, but Portsmouth is the only school division in the Commonwealth that has not yet voted. And so I do think that the time is now. And, thank you, Dr. Bracy, for your leadership on this. I do want to just make sure, like Dr. Whitaker and board member Thomas mentioned about the ventilation, that is something that will be great for all of our classrooms. The MERT 13 filters are great, but I would also want to take it a step further just to make sure that all of our air quality is good and perfect for our students, teachers, and staff. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tillage. Ms. Williams, then Ms. Hines. I'm sorry, Mr. Parent, Ms. Williams, Ms. Hines, and then Ms. Thomas.
I can yield to Ms. Williams. I'll go after Ms. Williams.
Yeah, I thank you, Chairman Patillo. I've always been one, I say, look at the science, the metrics, the data. And I think a couple of weeks ago, we were almost 19% or 20%. Today, we're 11.2%. And I predicted at the last meeting, by the time that the teachers and the students come back, we probably will be back at 6% or below. And the only other thing that I am very pleased about, I think HR reported at the last meeting that at that time, 67% of our staff had been vaccinated. And last year we didn't have any of that. So it was in November when I think I made the motion to return, it was Thanksgiving was coming and Christmas was coming. And the positivity rate was 6%, I believe. And the fact that we did not have the vaccination was always a concern for me. So I pulled up the surrounding cities today. Portsmouth is 11.2, Chesapeake is 12%, Hampton 14.5%, Norfolk 9.2, Virginia Beach 9.9, Western Tidewater 8.7. So we are really in good standing, and these schools have been, in fact, the teachers and the staff, they have been working from the buildings for some time. We have been very, I would say, very understanding, very lenient, very everything, because our teachers were able to work virtually from home, but the others did have to come in. And I've always also said that it's the option of the parent. The parent can choose whether to send them or not, virtually or whatever. So they do have that option. And I'm at the point now, you all know the song. It's time to get on the bus, Gus. It's time for us to move forward. No need to be coy, Roy. It's time to move on because our kids are suffering. I got a call this morning from a parent that said, please, the virtual is not working. It's not working for my child. And I've gotten many calls like that. I do get calls from teachers saying that, please consider not going back. And I got some calls from some teachers that say, we need to go back. So we're not going to please everybody. But I do think we need to do the things that Board Member Thomas and Dr. Whitaker mentioned about the ventilation, and also make sure everything is on the up and up. I like that recommendation on the task force for each school so they can present any concerns that they have. And as I said to someone else, Portsmouth Public Schools were not perfect before the pandemic. So certainly we're not going to be perfect at any time, but we cannot, and I really mean this, we cannot be the only school in the state of Virginia or in the Hampton Roads area that have not tried to get their kids back in school. I think that's a disservice to our students. Thank you. And I am done.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Parent.
Well,
before you go, Mr. Parent, Ms. Williams, was that a real song? I never heard that before in my life.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Go ahead, Mr. Parent.
Well,
one second, Cardell, I must be telling my age, but get on the bus, Gus. That is a real song.
Oh. Yep. One of my concerns, and we've all of us at one time or the other, we have voiced this whole thing about mental health. And we have children that are suffering from depression, anxiety, and I have gotten calls. I've seen several documentaries about the rate of suicide, the rate of the number of children that are drug overdose. Children need, to the best of their ability, to socialize. And I think many of the children, not just really Portsmouth, but I've asked Dr. Bracey because I would like to know the suicide rate in Portsmouth and also the drug overdose. And he and I have talked about this. But across America, there's sad stories that children could have been, I mean, it could have been prevented if they had had the opportunity to socialize and reach out to, and we have counselors, but they're not qualified to do what a social worker or psychologist or somebody that could help them. When we get together, you know, you socialize with your family, you have an outlet, you have somebody you can talk to. But when you're at home and you're by yourself or with your family, and all you're doing is, I mean, for over a year, they have been looking at this screen, and it's time that we help our kids, because it's just sad that the number of children across this country that have lost their lives because they have been in doing virtual learning. So I'm echoing Mrs. Williams and everybody else. It is time that we bring these students back, and let's start this process and get on with it. Please. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas, and then Ms. Hines.
Thank you. I forgot to make this comment, but I just wanted to make it when Board Member Tillage said something. I just, as one of the new board members that just came on in January, you know, last year when the school system went virtual, I was sitting in a parent chair, and this has been a really hard decision. Like, I was on the fence for a while, but I'll tell you, to the general public who's listening, something that I had to bring in my professional head, and something I've explained to other parents or teachers when they've said, you know, question their safety or the risk of it, especially when we were talking about the metrics. And I compared it to how I would compare for my job as a risk professional. And everything we do in life, it has an inherent risk, right? We drive a car, we live, even staying in our homes. Every time we wake up, we are doing something in life that has an inherent risk, but we take the proper precautions to drive down that risk. And that's exactly what we're doing here. So when you're driving a car, to ensure that if you do get into an accident, you don't get seriously hurt. We have brakes on the car, you have tires on the car, you wear a seatbelt. We have procedures in place, such as our driving laws. So compare that to, that's why I've been asking the questions I've been asking to our Dr. Bracey and his staff, in making sure that we have those precautions in place. I would never send my own child or a teacher to someplace or back to work before we've taken the proper mitigations. And the best we can do is follow the CDC mitigation guidelines. And there's 5 major mitigations. And I can say that the questions that we've asked, I know that we have those minimum 5 mitigations. Plus I heard from Dr. Bracey and his staff that they're going to do more. It's never going to be 100% risk-free, because nothing that we do in life by living as humans is 100% risk-free. So we have to ensure full adherence with mask wearing, full adherence with social distancing, ventilation, sanitizer, cleaning schedule. These are all mitigations that drive down the risk. And then the biggest one we have, thankfully for our teachers, is vaccination. And while it will not eliminate any sort of transmission, it greatly reduces the impact of transmission in our school, almost to the point where we can say we've drove down the risk in school than risk in community. So I just wanted to bring that viewpoint. I am a parent. I was sitting on the other side of this before. So regardless of the vote, I just wanted to let you know that has weighed heavily on me, and that's how I've come to my decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Ms. Hines?
Thank you, Chair. I do have a couple of questions. Dr. Bracy, I know this plan is for K-6. However, if this plan is approved, that still leaves middle and high school without any opportunity for face-to-face. Has there been any consideration to create Wednesdays as an person-to-person days where our middle and high school students can come to school and get some hands-on small group sessions with some of our teachers, maybe offering teachers a stipend to work with our students, but also too, because of the transportation issue, Wednesday would be a perfect time to be able to move some of those students into the middle and high school to get some of that time that they deserve. Because while this K-6 plan does focus on our youngest, we also have students that are failing and not thriving at these other levels as well. Is there a way that we can possibly, even if it's just one day a week, get them into the schools and get them some face-to-face time as well? And then I have another follow-up question.
Mrs. Hines, that's something that we can look at further. We have looked at Wednesdays, and I think we talked a little bit about this last week as well. When we talked about, we're looking at Wednesdays because when you have your SOL testing at the high school level, we're looking at those Wednesdays for that period for them to use their testing, because as we talked about, transportation can be problematic with that. So that's why we're looking at Wednesdays for testing. So that may cause a problem with what you're recommending, but we will take a look at it and see how we can address that. One of the things that we also talked about last week was that we were going to look at trying to enhance the I guess you can say the orientation programs at the middle and high school levels, looking at our current 6th and 7th graders and current 8th and 9th graders, extending what we normally do for their orientation. I think in the past during the summer, it's been 4 days. So Dr. Cromartie has been meeting with the secondary principals and looking at how we can extend that, because we know that they need that in-person atmosphere. And we're looking at it to be more than a transition program. We're also looking at them just looking at some of the core areas and working with them on that. So we haven't completely forgotten about the secondary students. We would, of course, if we were coming back on this model, then we just wanted to try to make sure that we reach our most vulnerable students, because the plan we presented last week that you all asked for, we did have middle school students involved in that, so they were included at that time.
Right.
And then also we had some CTE students that were also included in that process to return also.
Okay. All right. I'm going to advocate for getting as many kids in front of teachers at this time as I can. And so that's me. Can we get an idea of what hybrid is going to look like from the teacher perspective? What kind of training do we have planned for them? What can the students expect to see? What can the parents expect to see? And what can the teachers expect to be trained on over the next few weeks during these async Thursdays?
That information was, I think Dr. Wynn went over that last week, and she talked about that we're going to have training for the staff to basically be prepared for to teaching in person, as well as those students that are virtual. So we will have that available I think we're looking at the Thursdays in March, where we have the days that some of our staff are recovering from the vaccine that we had. So that's in place. And as far as what it will look like, I think they're still putting all that together with the TRTs. I know I have Jennifer Thomas up here as well, if need be, but that's being put together now so that we'll have them prepared for that. Jennifer, I see you popped on. Do you want to add a little bit more to that in terms of what that looks like, so that you can give it a little bit more meat to what Mrs. Hines is asking for?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Dr. Bracy and board members. The IT department and my department worked on a couple scenarios this week and just trying to give options. In the classroom, teachers will have their laptop. We also have the BenQ boards. We do have cameras on those BenQ boards. And so essentially teachers can have the option of using their laptop, using the BenQ board, or even using the combination of both to almost give you kind of a dual monitor type experience. And we are going to really work with our teachers once they come back into the building. We know that they'll be back a week before spring break. And so we'll have time to work with them in the afternoons after virtual learning and really get them comfortable using the technology. And depending on their comfort level, we'll probably determine the direction we go as far as what devices they want to use to continue that instruction.
Okay. Because last week we talked about PD and that was it, but there's more to PD than just saying, PD. So I'm trying to alleviate fears and concerns of teachers as we have these conversations. And so thank you for answering the question, and thank you for doing what you're doing, because, as I had somebody tell me today, there's no playbook for any of this. There's not a playbook and it says, 3rd and 6, we're doing this, or 4 and 1, we're doing this. So I do appreciate it. Ms. Thomas, thank you so much. 2 more questions, Dr. Bracy, and then I'm going to yield my time. With us doing K6 or pre-K6 schooling, does that open up the option for our buses to return to the neighborhoods with food?
No, it doesn't, because
Okay.
we still, the problem with that, I don't think is necessarily with the busing, it's with staffing with food services, because the personnel that they've used to be able to provide that, they will now be back in their buildings providing food for the students inside the buildings.
Okay. Another concern I've heard, even since November, that we talked about coming back, is AlphaBest and paying for childcare. I know at one time there was a provision to use some of the CARES Act funding to pay for childcare for our staff and for our teachers that were coming back in. Is that still an option?
That provision ends the end of March, so that's no longer an option.
Okay. If it opens up with the bill that's in the Senate right now, the new COVID bill, can we take a look at that then, in case it is needed?
Sure, we can always revisit.
Okay. And the last thing, we've talked about, the lowering of the PCR numbers and where we are. Have we looked at a ceiling? So for instance, the numbers spike again. Is there a certain percentage where you will call us back for a special meeting to say, hey, the numbers are here, I really think we need to look at going to a fully virtual model again? Have we set a high mark number where we would look at going virtual again?
Well, we as an administration, no, we haven't, but I did have that conversation with Dr. James, and if we see the numbers increasing, I will meet with her, and if that's something that we need to come back and talk to the board about, I will.
Okay. Because I'm sorry, this has all been a fluid situation, and I just don't want us to think that we're opening the doors and we're not checking the numbers again. We are still going to keep an eyeball or two on those numbers, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Thank you. I yield.
Ms. Thomas.
I'm sorry, one more question for Dr. Bracy. Once we make this vote tonight, will the plan be available on our website for parents and teachers to review? Because will that be something we can update on the site, since we've made a few changes, and they can review it and then call their schools directly if they want to change their option? Will that be something we can do?
Yes, that is our plan, to get that up there, if not tonight, first thing in the morning, along with the manual that you had also shared with us as well, our version of that also.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions from board members? Ms. Hines, and then Ms. Thomas.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to make sure everybody has a chance to answer questions. I don't want to take all the time. I know last week we talked about substitutes. What is our substitute situations, and will teachers still have the opportunity for substitutes should the need arise for them to have days off? Because we all know life happens, and it happened before COVID, and it's going to happen after COVID. But where are we with substitutes, and is that process still going to remain the same?
Yeah, I don't think anything has changed with our substitutes. I mean, if teachers are going to be out, then we will follow the same process that we have in the past.
Ms. Thomas.
I should have wrote my questions down. Just to clarify from the earlier email regarding the CTE students, they are still, if we reopen on the hybrid, the CTE students will still come back 4 days a week to get their requirements. Is that correct?
Those three or four courses that we outlined for you last week.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And if we didn't reopen, they would possibly lose the opportunity to get their certification in those barbering, cosmetology, nail tech. Is that?
That's correct, because the teacher would have to be present in the building in order for them to get the hands-on. Yes.
Okay.
All right. Any more questions, Ms. Hines?
Thank you. One of the things we've talked about is a dashboard. And I know I made the comment, and I believe it was when we were on our 2x2 meetings. I would rather tell my story than have the pilot tell my story when it comes to numbers and when it comes to where we are. So my question is, where are we with the creation of this dashboard, and will it be live by the time we have students in the buildings?
Yes, it will be live when the students come into the building. Mrs. Duran shared that information with the HR committee. When was that? Was it yesterday? Yesterday. So that was shared as far as the information that would be listed and what we'll be reporting. So all that will be ready to go. They're going to work with the IT department in order to make sure we have everything up and running.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Patillo. So with the dashboard issue, does that mean that we're testing in the buildings?
No, that just means that if there have been cases that we have someone that's positive, that we can report the positivity numbers that have occurred within a particular school.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, that have been reported to us.
Okay.
Ms. Hines?
I'm finished with my questions, but I did want to thank all the board members for their questions and for staying diligent and asking the questions that need to be asked. Dr. Bracy, you and your staff have done a wonderful job at responding to those questions. To Board Member Thomas and to Board Member Tillage, this is a difficult decision. I've been here 6 years, and this is probably one of the hardest decisions that I've had to make. And as I sit here as a teacher, as a parent, and as a board member, the information that comes, it just generates more questions. And so I hate to be the bearer of the ones that ask the questions, but I just feel that some of these questions need to be asked so that we can have the answer to them in public. I voted no to the agenda tonight because I did want to meet in person, because I have always believed that if we are voting to send people back, then we need to be in person. And I understand that there have been circumstances that are beyond my control. So I just wanted to let you know, Board Member Tillage and Board Member Thomas, I don't think you're alone in the making of this decision, but I just wanted everybody to know that wearing all three hats and making this decision is not an easy decision. And like Board Member Williams said, whatever the decision is, there's going to be people that are happy and people that are upset. So But when it comes down to it, we've got to do what's best for kids because we are a school board. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I just want to again reiterate my thanks to the entire school board, to Dr. Bracy and his staff. And I just want to review a couple of things for the public and for staff alike that are watching. And that's that when it comes to decisions of reopening and major decisions of policy, when it comes to the school division, the buck stops with the school board. Dr. Bracy, he works at the directive of the school board, and any blame, any glory, should stop at the school board first. And then it trickles down to administration. So I want to make that clear, even all the way up to the state. They didn't leave my superintendent alone. Also, for the staff, you've heard a lot about people saying, go back to school, get back in the classroom. Never for 1 minute do I believe or anyone believe that you have not been working. I know that you have been working harder now than when you were in the building. It's difficult to give instruction solely through technology when you're so used to being hands-on. You're used to seeing the gleam in a child's eye. You're used to seeing their smile, getting your hug. So I understand how difficult this has been for you. And I'm never one to question anyone's anxiety on going back into a building because it's different for everybody. And I completely understand that. From the beginning, my reasoning for being anxious about going to school and cautious is because, again, I'm a metrics guy when it comes to the percent positivity. It's just not low enough for me as a sole board member. I do have questions about our staffing. Our workforce is already depleted, and we're not going to be sure how much more it would be depleted once we make a decision tonight to go or not to go. That's a concern for me. How will staffing look? Substitutes are already hard to get when we're in person. I think it's going to be even tougher now. Also with the schedule, I'm still not sold on the schedule as far as how teachers will maintain first teaching virtually and in person at the same time, but also keeping the same virtual schedule while you're teaching every day, and somehow manage to get your lesson plan out the same way to all the students. I still don't understand. I'm sure I'm not a professional with this. You all are, but that is still a question I have. Questions about transportation. Transportation has already been a madhouse for Portsmouth public schools. Now, we probably have between 60 and 65 drivers, that's supposed to meet, the needs of the school division during this time. That's a question that I have. We can't answer right now because we don't know how many students. What time would the last child get home? What time would the last pickup be at each elementary school? Those things we don't know. And because I have all these questions, it makes it difficult for me to make a decision, to go back virtually. But like I said in the beginning, the hearts and minds of every board member has been clear. It's been genuine. They want you safe. They want our children safe. They want our children back learning in person. And not for one moment did they not have those interests at heart when making decisions on behalf of the school board. So I don't envy Mr. Parent, who's been doing this for the last five years. It's been difficult because you want to make sure everyone is heard and not always push, your opinion. So I thank the board members for their diligence in working with this. I thank the staff. I really feel we have the best superintendent in the Commonwealth, and he has a great team. So if there's no more discussion on this item, one more, Ms. Thomas.
Yes, Board Chairman Patel, the things you just mentioned, like some of the items that we still have questions about, that was kind of my on the fence as a board member, but my understanding is that we would make the decision, and then that is when it becomes up to Dr. Bracy and his staff to figure out the solution. And so I just just want to make this clear because that is part of my questioning too. And you brought up some awesome questions, but my understanding is that we make the decision as the board, and then it's up to Dr. Bracy and his staff to basically adhere to the solutions and find the solutions to make it happen. And then we hold them accountable to make sure those things happen. So I just wanted to put that out there because how I know how I'm going to vote now after all these considerations, but I want to make sure it does stop at the board, but then we make sure that the experts, the staff that work for Portsmouth Public Schools follow through, because I don't know if even those gaps would not have occurred even if we wait until the fall to open. So I just wanted to make sure that was my understanding was correct there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was speaking as an individual member how I make my decisions, come to my conclusions. I don't buy a car unless I know how it's going to run. You know, that's just how I make my decisions. Mr. Tillage and Mr. Parent.
Yes, I just wanted to address kind of what Board Member Thomas has addressed as well. I've had similar questions in regards to that as well. But I do believe that, tonight as a board, us making the vote, whatever that vote shall be, and then entrusting that the PPS administration will find those solutions. And one thing I would like to add is for Dr. Bracey is over the next 2 weeks between now and teachers returning to school, that we can make sure that we communicate with all of our staff and parents, as well as the public, just so that when teachers arrive on the 29th and kids arrive on the 12th, that we can help to get rid of some of the anxiety and help them realize that we are ready and that we have the best measures possible in place for a safe learning environment and work environment.
I'm sorry, I forgot who was next. I apologize. Mr. Parent.
Well, we as a board tonight would not be able to make an informed decision if it had not been for Dr. Bracey and his staff to prepare and answer the questions that we have all directed toward the administration. Now, if we did not have a competent administrative staff like Dr. Bracey and his staff, then tonight I would be in a situation where I would say I can't vote because I don't have the information. We've got enough information to make an informed decision. And yes, Mrs. Thomas, after we make the decision, then it's Dr. Bracey's responsibility and his staff to implement the plan that we have discussed, and we have asked question after question. I mean, he understands what needs to be done because his staff they're the ones that have answered our questions, and they're the ones that have it in place. So I think that we need to, to move forward. And I commend, commend Dr. Bracey and his staff for such a great job. And I think we're ready to vote. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're there as well. Do we have any other comments or concerns from board members? If not, Madam Clerk, will you use a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Hines?
Yes.
Mr. Parent?
Yes.
Mrs. Shoemake?
Absolutely not.
Mr. Thomas?
Ms. Thomas, yes.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Thomas.
Mhm.
Mr. Tillage?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
No.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Reverend Patillo?
No.
6 yes, 3 no.
Thank you so much. Next agenda item, 3.5. If we have any subcommittee reports, Well, actually, we're combining. It's okay with the board 3.5 and 3.6 board member comments and reports at this time if we have any. Mr. Parent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The School Board Human Resource Committee, and I'm going to ask Ms. Shoemate if she can chime in. This is going to be a kind of a team presentation. She and I met with Dr. Bracy and Mrs. Durham and Letitia Russell, the HR supervisor, yesterday. And basically the topics of discussion was position changes and eliminations. That will come later and addressed to the board at a later time. We talked about emergency temporary staff because that's already been addressed by substitutes and the need for substitutes. And we addressed those and that's something that HR is on top of. And we talked about the dashboard, the COVID dashboard. There were positions that we discussed that we're not ready to discuss this evening, but that will be done at a later date for the board, but we did spend some time. Another topic that we discussed, and Mrs. Shoemate, you might want to chime in on the emergency temporary staff. Mrs. Durham was talking about some employees will be allowed to fill other positions when short-staffed due to vacancies and or COVID leave. I wonder, Mrs. Durham, if when we talked about some employees, that you can kind of elaborate on who they might be.
Sure. Good evening. When we were talking about some employees who will be approved, of course, it would be on a case-by-case basis.
Right.
So not just blanket approval, but it would be employees who currently do not work a full day so that they could work around their schedule to fill in as needed. So if someone may work 4 hours, for example, with food services, then we could consider possibly having them to assist with driving a route should we need it if they are licensed to do so. So that was what we were talking about.
Right. Thank you. And the last item that we talked about, we just brought up about the dashboard, the number of positive employee cases by location, the number of positive student cases by location, the date last positive case reported, and the target launch, which is face-to-face learning returns. Now, this is not going to be done by the Department of Portsmouth Health Department. This is going to be done by Portsmouth Public Schools. And this will be done by the principal and his staff reporting to Mrs. Durham's office so that this information will be gathered and disseminated to board members. And Ms. Shoemate, if you want to chime in, anything else that I missed in this report, please chime in.
No, I think you covered it all. And I also think that the suggestion that Board Member Thomas made to create an internal team could probably be in charge of what we discussed. So I think that was a good segue as far as what we were talking about yesterday, and possibly get the team to be able to formulate enough information to provide to administration so that we can have the correct numbers. So no, I think you covered it all, Mr. Parent. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much. Any other committee reports?
Chair Patillo.
Vice Chair Atkinson.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to give a huge happy belated shout out to Gwen Davis, who is the NWBE program administrator. So happy belated birthday to you, Gwen. Thank you for all you do for the committee. Also, we're in the process of still getting updated on the disparity report. So hopefully we'll have something in on that soon. And hopefully we will also have an upcoming RFP, since we did vote to reopen schools, to solicit the help of the outside vendors. So hopefully there will be an upcoming RFP coming out. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I know the Operations and Technology Committee, we met yesterday. And if it's okay with Mr. Tillage, I know the auxiliary report is pretty long. If we can email that out to them so they can have that to save time, that would be great if you agree. All right. Any other committee reports at this time? Ms. Thomas, and then Ms. Hines.
Thank you. Not so much well, not an actual report, but I know Finance Committee, Budget and Finance Committee, we haven't met yet for the month of March, but we are meeting. And one of the things we're discussing is how to, how we can spend that grant money that Dr. Whitaker had mentioned earlier as well. So to make additional changes to the school. And also Mr. Falk is looking into that additional bonus hazard pay we discussed. So we'll be discussing that at our next meeting.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Ms. Hines.
Thank you, Board Chair. And it's not a committee report, but before we adjourned, considering the vote that we just made tonight for a new plan and to go back, I was wondering if we could adjust the agenda to add an agenda item for an update for this from the superintendent and staff about planning and any concerns or any hiccups that they have found during their planning that we may need to be aware of or that we may need to address, because we will meet again on the 18th, I believe is when it is. And so that is still 10 days before the teachers are to return. So that still gives us some wiggle room to make some adjustments or to have some conversations as needed with our staff based on what they find over the next 2 weeks. So I was just wondering if we could add that to the agenda.
Yes, I spoke with the superintendent earlier, and he was saying once we get some results back from the surveys and other information from staff, and he can give us a better update at the next meeting on how everything is looking.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem. Any other comments or board reports? Ms. Shoemake.
Yes, I don't have an actual report, but before I kind of give my big shout out to one of our awesome teachers, I just want to say, Dr. Bracy and his administration, thank you so much for all of your due diligence. I really do appreciate the time that you took to put into this plan, this process. It's not an easy one. I'm pretty sure people already knew that I was going to say no, and and it's fine. And it's not easy to say no or yes, because it's a lot that people have to take into consideration. And so I just want to really thank Dr. Bracy for everything that you've done. Like you said, Chairman Patillo, the buck stops with us. So, you know, don't go blaming Dr. Bracy for anything. If you want to blame somebody, blame us. And you can also blame me. I didn't vote it, but you can still blame me. I could take it. It's cool. So I want to move on to, I had a lot of parents to contact me today about Miss Diana Avents. She is a Churchland Middle School math teacher. She went out and safely provided gift bags to her students today. And I thought that was just awesome. So the parents reached out to me and they wanted to make sure that I acknowledge her, that she went far and beyond the call of duty to ensure that her students understood and knew that she cared. And, you know, I'm pretty sure she missed them. Well, not necessarily missed because she haven't been able to see them in person, but she just wanted to let them know that she cares and that she's there for them. And we already know that Miss Avents is an awesome teacher. She was Teacher of the Year 1 year. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for all of your due diligence to include the teachers. And I want to thank all of the teachers for everything that you have done. As a parent, I know some of the struggles that you guys have had because I've seen it. You guys have emailed me. I've emailed you. It's just been crazy. But I just want to say thank you all for everything that you've done. And please continue to be with us. Please continue to support us. Please continue to work with our children. And we will continue to be with you and work with you as well. So that's all I had, Chairman Patillo.
Thank you so much. Mr. Parent.
One thing I wanted to stress, and Dr. Nguyen is not here. I don't see Dr. Nguyen, but, you know, once upon a time when I worked in the school system, I was director of staff development. And one of the things that you learn is that you've got to train, and communicate. And we've talked about that now that we've made the decision to return staff to school, or some of our staff to school. we've got to make sure that we train them, they understand, they feel comfortable, because they're going to be teaching in person, and at the same time they're going to be doing virtual, because you know some of the students are not all going to be coming back, and I think we've addressed that. So my kudos to all of the teachers in Portsmouth and staff is that I know this is going to be a challenge to you, but please, Dr. Bracy and the instructional staff, make sure that our teachers are well-trained. We've communicated to them, they understand, and they're prepared, because if we launch this and they're not prepared, then yes, Mrs. Shoemate, it's going to be on this board, because we've made the decision, listening to the administration and asking them questions, that we got to make sure that everything, I mean, not every dot, and we've got to make sure that our staff is well-trained, they're ready to go, they feel comfortable, and then we can launch it and we'll have success. So thank you. That's all.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yeah, I couldn't leave tonight without also saying that Dr. Bracy, you're an excellent superintendent. I know this process has not been easy. No one expected us to be in this position, for almost a year. But I commend you for your leadership and your open door policy of always listening and responding to questions, not just from us as a board, but from the community as well. And so I just wanted to make sure for those who are listening tonight, that at least from my perspective, you have my vote of confidence, and you've done an excellent job in the leadership of the school district. Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other comments or concerns from board members at this time? Seeing none, no motions required. I now declare this meeting closed. Thank you so much and have a great evening.
Chairman Patillo, you're going to have to let me make a motion to adjourn at some point.
We'll do it next meeting.